Guys, I had a really good discussion with someone today about motivation, and I think some really good points that were brought up that I want to kind of talk to you guys about. So, we specifically talked about what is motivation useful for, when should it, when is it helpful, when is it not helpful, and so on and so forth. So, I think many people would say, well, motivation is always helpful, which, which is true to an extent, but the issue arises when people rely on being motivated too much because, the fact of the matter is you're not always going to be motivated to do something, whether, we'll use the physique realm, for example, obviously, but, whether you're a competitor or just want to, eat a better diet, follow your macros, whatever, maybe you want to get a pro card, whatever it is. Motivation's not always going to be there through the whole process. And after the process is done, you start a new process. So what motivation is good for is, potentially helping you take initial steps to form habits, help you continue to strive to be better, get you through some of those slumps, things like that. But like I said, you're not always going to be motivated. There are going to be plenty of times through a process that you just have to get things done. You need to visualize, use visualization. Remember that this is your end goal. This is what you want to accomplish. Or maybe your end goal is not very concrete. Maybe it's just that, like many of us, we just want to keep getting better and better and better and better and better, and just as long as we possibly can, and we'll compete along the way and test ourselves and so on and so forth. But I do think that motivation is useful in certain cases, like I said, and it's also important to understand that there are different types of motivation, whether, are you looking at intrinsic or extrinsic? Extrinsic being more reward driven, and obviously if you're a physique competitor, then there's going to be some extrinsic motivation there. You want to win a trophy, you want to become IFBB pro, you want to win a pro show, get a paycheck, whatever it is, get a sponsor, so on and so forth. It's obviously going to be there, but 90% of the time the extrinsic portion is not there, just because how long is a show? A show lasts one day. You're on stage for maybe 10 minutes, probably not even, if it's a huge show. So really relying on extrinsic motivation isn't super useful. Obviously you can look ahead and see the reward and visualize, like I said, and that would be extrinsic, but intrinsic motivation is really what's going to stick with you, and that's really what's going to be more useful long-term. Motivation within, that way, you're not relying on something else. You're not relying on a reward. You're not relying on an outside source. We see on social media memes and pictures and quotes and all that stuff, which is fine. That's great, but to rely on that is just, it's really not going to get you anywhere. And I see people that do that constantly. They're constantly striving to attain motivation. They're seeking it out, and when really motivation isn't what's going to help you sustain a lifestyle. Habits are what help you sustain a lifestyle. Habit is something that you can do even though when you don't want to do it. If that makes sense, there's plenty of times where maybe you're just not feeling it. You don't want to train. You're otherwise healthy. It's not like you're burnt out. You just, for whatever reason, you don't want to train. Or you have a lot of stuff going on, or you're having a hard time prioritizing, or whatever it is. Habit is what's going to probably make you get in the gym, and knowing, well, I can't foresee not doing this, so I'm going to do it. Motivation is not always going to be there to help you get through those situations. So, that's not something I tell people to rely on. I've had this discussion with clients. It's like I always tell him and tell other people, it's really easy to execute when everything's going right and you're motivated, but when you're not, that's when it really counts. And that's what separates you from everyone else, or the people that can't do things unless they're motivated. If you can do things when you're unmotivated, then you are going to succeed. I mean, you're going to get, at the very least, you're going to get the absolute most out of what you're doing. So the takeaway here is, don't rely on that. Rely on a habit, rely on a lifestyle, and, use motivation at times when it's there. But if you're constantly seeking and grabbing for it, then maybe you need to reconsider your habits in the first place, because, something's clearly off. So I hope this was helpful to you guys. I know some people are going to relate to this.